Welcome to Keeping Up with Our Community, a podcast for and about Romeo Community Schools. Each week, we will invite different guests to share insights about some unique aspects of our schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com. Hello, my name is Marian Brush, and I'm the Communications and Marketing Supervisor for Romeo Community Schools. It is my pleasure to introduce episode 33 of the Keeping Up with Our Community Schools podcast. This Friday, on September 13, Romeo's varsity football team is facing our biggest rival, Eisenhower, in our annual Watchdog Game. This is the 15th Watchdog Game in the school district's history. Here to tell us about the significance of the Watchdog Game are Cody Smith, Director of Athletics and Student Activities, and Curt, Romeo alum, teacher, and head varsity football coach. Before I turn the discussion over to Cody to host this episode, can each of you introduce yourselves and tell us a little about your backgrounds? Let's begin with Cody.
Sure. Thanks for having us. My name is Cody Smith, as Marianne mentioned. This is my 7th year here in Romeo, 13th overall as a athletic director. As Coach will probably mention, he's a Grand Valley alum, as am I. Grand Valley, Florida State background, and played hockey a long time. That was my main sport. So, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Curt?
Yeah, I don't know what else to say other than I'm just a proud Bulldog. Went to Mandamore Elementary School, and then Powell Middle School, and then to the old Romeo Middle School for 8th and 9th grade, and then into the high school. Went away to Grand Valley, played football there, came back, and my wife and I both teach in the district. Our kids went through here, so I definitely bleed red in many ways. So,
excellent. Well, I'll kick us off. Why don't you give us a brief overview of what the Watchdog Game is for those that don't know, and what was the conception? How did it all get started?
Yeah, we've always had servant leadership as one of our core values for our football program, and what better way to serve your community? And when Jason and I first came to Romeo, the roots of Romeo were the same as it is now, but it was a different time. And one of the things that we've always noticed, and I think this is one thing people can say about this community, is anytime there's somebody in need, this community is always rallied around. Doesn't matter if it's somebody's house burns down. I can remember, taking food over to people and being a line of people already waiting to drop stuff off. This community is just always, when something's on the line, they really rally around and support, those. I know even at one point in time, this was probably about 8 years ago, I did some research between St. Baldrick's, the high school's charity week, our Watchdog Game, the amount of money that we raised put us like in the top 3 in the country of high schools at that time, which is pretty amazing because most of the schools were out in California that are like mega schools. But so we were trying to just figure out what are some ways that we can serve the community. And we're actually at a coach's clinic, and Lowell High School did their version of a Watchdog Game the year before. And we were just like, that's something that we could really tie into. Coach Couch and his wife had just walked in the Susan G. Komen 3-day cancer walk the year before. So kind of our plan at the time was how do we get our boys involved with Susan G. Komen and raise some money? So that first year, we took our football program down at the end of day 1. And if people aren't familiar with the 3-day walk, I think it's 22 miles. I think they walk the first day, and they get to their stopping point, and their bags are all their belongings are in duffel bags. They're dead tired at the end of the day. They're coming through exhausted, and we would grab their bag, find out what site they were, and then we'd set their tents up for them and all their belongings, tell them to go get something to eat and drink. And it was a really powerful thing because one, there's a lot of purpose why those people are walking, but they're exhausted at the end of the day. And the thought of, having to set up your own tent, carry your 50 pounds of equipment over, and then have some high school, football players there to do it for you when you weren't expecting it. There were a lot of tears of joy and hugs given out. And, that kind of kicked off in the summer and really moved our kids. I think they saw the impact that it made. And I do think kids today, they need to see some of the impact so they know what their efforts are going to. And so then that school year, we did our first Watchdog game. We were playing Fraser High School and had reached out to them to see if they wanted to participate, and they did. They actually had their own Watchdog week similar to what we do. And so the first shirt actually had both schools' helmets on them. They sold shirts, we sold shirts. Their players raised money, we raised. So it's kind of a collaborative thing, and that's kind of how it started.
Excellent. Yeah, it's definitely evolved from, this is our 15th year, so it's definitely evolved from year one to where we're at today. So kudos to you. Many of us have been touched by cancer in one form or another. Do you have any personal connection to cancer or cancer survivors, or any stories from the team that you would feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, like after practice each day, we kind of share out who we're representing. And I intentionally wear sunglasses that day, but last night I took my sunglasses off so the kids could see the tears in my eyes, because it's an emotional week. And, we had a couple kids who stood up that got really emotional about who they're representing. And, one of the things I told them, I wanted them to see, the passion in my eyes, is like for them to understand it's more than a game this week. And we have an opportunity to really, represent the names on our back in a different way. So I wanted them to see the passion that I had, and hopefully they'll play with that come Friday. Over the years as a coach, unfortunately, I've had several players who have had cancer. We have a young man that we honor every year at our football banquet, Stanley Babinski, who was diagnosed the year after he got out of high school. And I think it ended up being our Watchdog week, ironically, when he found out about it. And, when you're sitting in a living room with one of your former players on his last days and him saying his goodbyes, it was a tough struggle. So we've had everything from that end of it to another young man getting ready for a JV football game. And I come over and just try to pump him up. You ready to go? And he's like, yeah. But it was one of those yeahs where you're like, are you good? And he's like, no, like my stomach's been killing me for a couple days. And, I remember asking him, okay, 10, the worst pain you've ever experienced. 1, nothing. And he's like, a 9.5. And I'm like, you can't go on the field. Like, if you're in that much pain, we got to find out what's going on. And he went in and got checked, and he had a softball-sized tumor that was kinking his intestines. And, he spent several weeks at Children's Hospital, and just going to Children's Hospital is, a real eye-opening experience to see all those kids. But then to be able to go down and visit and spend time with him. And it was just great to see the joy that he still had through that process. And he beat it and came out, cancer-free. I think this is a story I told the kids at school today, and I probably talked about it so much already. That's why I'm getting so emotional. But we had a year who one of our current players had cancer when he was a child, and that year's quarterback was playing in honor of his teammate, which is just a cool thing, to start with. And we get down to about the 1 yard line and get ready to go in to score. And all of a sudden our quarterback sprints off the field, and we thought he got hurt. Something happened, and he runs over to the sideline and grabs that young man and drags him out on the field. And there's this really long huddle. We're not sure what's going on, what they're doing. And they kind of just created their own backyard play on the fly, and they're going to give him the ball so he can score. And so as a coach, we're kind of waiting to see what happens. And the poor kid just gets dropped. And to the point where we think he's injured. And so we're like waving him off, and the quarterback waves us back to the sideline. We got this, a long talk in the huddle, and they basically carried the kid into the end zone, and he scored. And so, to see the emotion on his face and his teammates was a really cool thing.
Yeah. I think all of us, like I said, could be impacted one way or another. And for them to hear those stories daily after practice this week definitely hits home for them to be reminded that, they're not alone and that everyone's been touched by this disease together. Kind of piggybacking on that as well, how do you and the team prepare for this special game differently compared to a normal regular season game?
Well, the day in and day out part is the same. Just the post practice, the sharing out is the part that's different. And one of the crazy things that happens every year, and we've only had one practice this week, so we'll see what else gets shared out. But there's always some kid that shares a struggle that their family has gone through with cancer that you just didn't even know. Every year there's somebody on our team has a sibling that's going through it. Every year there's somebody that has lost a parent to it or has a parent struggling through it. And, it just kind of gives you some perspective. And we do practice on our pregame, the survival tunnel, just because it's something that's different that you don't normally have during the game. And just kind of mentally prepare the kids of what that looks like, feels like, because it's different before kickoff than what a normal game is. Normal game, you're like pounding each other on the shoulder pads, getting fired up, and now you have to get in a mental mindset of I'm cheering these people on because they're the ones that really have had the fight.
Fought that battle.
Yeah.
Can you tell the listeners kind of what that is or describe what that's like?
Yeah, both teams come out before the game, and we kind of form a tunnel, and then we ask anybody from both schools that are survivors to come out, and then Mike Lee just does a fantastic job organizing this. He's really taken this over the last several years, and it's interesting because some of the things that happen that I don't know about because they're going on behind the scenes, but having a dad, my father is a cancer survivor, and so I've represented him in this game as well, but he has our JV players show up and act as escorts. So we have a survivor tent with some light hors d'oeuvres and refreshments for them before the game. And then right before the game, they bring them out, and both teams kind of form a tunnel for them to go through. And a JV player will escort each of them out. And one of the kind of the cool things that they do as well before that, the JV player will take a picture with who they're escorting. And our kids are awesome. They have great conversations with them. And then they do a handwritten letter with that picture as a follow-up a week or two later. I didn't even know about that part until my dad went through it. And, he'll always know who Nick Snyder is, who graduated a few years ago because that was his escort. And, he got to know the young man, and the young man wrote him a follow-up letter that was really personal. So, it's just a really cool start to the evening.
And the players choose somebody to name to wear on their jerseys?
Yep. And so all the players will represent somebody different. So their jerseys will actually say, Gigi or, Uncle Al or whatever. So,
other than the jerseys and the Survivor Tunnel, are there any other special traditions that you can think of during the game? I know, just off the top of my head, thinking with Mr. Hinkle announcing names, like he announces them as who they're playing for in the game, or, the ribbon, cancer ribbon picture at the end of the night. Are there any other traditions that you can think of that are pretty special that the casual fan will
The cancer ribbon has been something that's been interesting because the first few years we would go out as coaches and we would paint it Thursday night. And it was, if you haven't seen it, it's a very large ribbon, and it would take a long time. And somebody would have to run up to the press box and yell down to us like, no, move it a little more here. And back then our field was grass. And so we're really doing it in grassy mud, just eaten alive by mosquitoes. So there's a lot of memories that go back to those days of painting the field. Now our band does a great job of, they outline the ribbon for us after the game, and we get everybody to go down in. The other thing that we've done the last several years is we have honorary captains, and usually there's somebody within our district that are either going through cancer at the time or survivors of it. I don't want to steal the thunder yet, but we have a teacher and 2 students this year that are going to be our honorary captains. So tomorrow they're going to be having some football players show up in their classes and giving them their invitation to be our honorary captain. So that's another really neat thing that has came. And then Jeff Hinkle does a phenomenal job of, like I said, Grandma Lee and whoever it is on the play. Like he really does a good job getting all those names. And it's cool. Like hearing, the kickoff was, by Uncle Sam or whoever. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the football team that represents people that they play for. Our cheerleaders, dance team, marching band, all follow the same tradition and have either on their back their shirts or their jerseys that they wear for that night as well. So it's pretty cool seeing everyone all on the same page that night. How does the team and the students engage with the local community for the events? Can you talk a little bit about how some of the pledges or donations come in from the boys?
Yeah, this kind of changes, I think, year to year based on the student body themselves. And as we do a program that every kid has a picture of themselves and a little bio and a picture of who they're representing. And then we ask the kids to, we initially would have them write letters out to family members of the person they're representing, asking for donations. Man, it was probably 14 years ago. One of the young men was like, I want to do something different. I want to make chairs. So he made like lounge chairs for a deck and then sold them with the intent that all the money was going towards Watchdog. And so that year, a couple other kids were like, well, I think I can outdo that. A couple kids went around the neighborhood and put out flyers on what the Watchdog game was, what it was about, and asked people just set their returnables outside their garage, and they'd pick them up on every Saturday morning. And like those kids have all, they raise each over $1,000 a piece for the game. There's been, because of that, some years that like one of the young men a couple of years ago, Grandpa is who he was representing. Grandpa was alive, but was still struggling with cancer, and I was really good with woodworking. So they made wine racks together and sold. And I know that the family's very thankful because that was actually one of his last memories with him. He passed away shortly after the game, but they got to spend that time together, making those wine racks. So the kids have gotten creative with their ideas, and I would say probably in some ways, and that probably falls on me, but our community involvement has maybe gone down a little bit. The first couple of years there were corporate sponsors. Football starts really in June. And so it has gotten tough to manage a football season and some of those things. But really the big thing is just showing up to the game, purchasing a shirt, which gets your ticket in the game. And then it kind of unifies everybody with the shirt that they have on. And then there are people that still make donations the day of the game, which all help.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the game has had a tremendous impact on you and your coaching staff, but can you comment on how your players perceive the game or any of the feedback that they've given you over the years of, how they feel after the game or during the events?
Yeah, I think when you watch after the game, when they hand their jersey off to the family members of the people that they were honoring, we've lost a lot of these. There's been a lot of wins. A few years ago, we had a really close loss right down to the wire against Chippewa Valley. And it was one of those games where, like, normally I think people would be a little emotional in a negative way that, we lost this close battle, but it quickly switches. And you can see that, this is a game. It means a lot to us, but at the end of the day, there's something bigger there, and the mood switches in a hurry. As soon as those handshakes are done and people start handing those jerseys out, there's a lot of smiles and hugs going on and pictures being taken. So,
yeah, absolutely. It's definitely quite a sight to see at the end of the night when everyone is passing their jersey to their family members, and the emotional hugs and tears of joy or sadness all wrapped into one.
And I do even think on that, like, I don't know that I realized early on the impact that it also has on the opposing team's community. But I've noticed over the years, their spectators, their players and coaches observing those interactions, and you can tell they're moved by it as well. So even if they're not actively participating, I think it's still, I think there's something mental there of like, this is just a game and we're doing it for something more. So
I believe at last count, over the last 15 years, you've donated over $600,000, if not more than that. What are your hopes and plans for the future of the Watchdog game and how it can continue to grow or can continue to contribute to the cause?
yeah, I know one of the things that we are talking about, we've had our football committee has Four Corners has started a Watchdog committee over the years, and there's usually somebody from dance, cheer, band, and then football on it. But Mr. Osbold is kind of creating a student ambassador group, and the hope is that we can really get these kids involved in running it. I think the more that they can get their hands on it, the more they'll learn through the process. And ultimately, it's just more people to help get out and connect with the community, find different ways that we can, raise some money for. And then I think, someday I've always dreamt of us building enough assets that like our people in our community can be the direct recipients of it. And it could be something it might be literally our kids are the ones making a meal funded by the Watchdog and personally delivering them to the household so that they can bring a positive message with it as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Last one here in closing. Do you have any, I know you commented on a few of them, but do you have any other success stories or memorable moments you want to share to our listeners?
I know, like, interestingly enough, that we're playing Ike this year, and we did play them last year for it. A gentleman by the name of Neil Sumala, who was a driver's training teacher for Romeo and for the Utica School District. And I think for him, the Romeo Ike was kind of like some families are with Michigan State, where it's like, it's tough depending on the day. And he would always give us a positive message, but he was on game days. He was on the Ike sideline in Ike gear. I represented him one year for the Watchdog game, and just way things work out. He happens to pass away. His funeral is Watchdog week, and it is on Friday, Watchdog game against Ike. And show up at the funeral, and the thing that they have front and center is his framed Watchdog jersey. And then in the casket is a picture of him and I after the Watchdog game. So, it was obviously that, that meant a big deal to him. So,
yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's amazing to see the bigger picture behind the scenes, like all things are connected and tied in together. There's definitely a meaning behind that. I don't think that would be any coincidence that all fell in at the same time. In closing, what message would you like to share with the audience about the importance of supporting cancer research, and how can our fans contribute to the cause?
Yeah, definitely showing up at the game, buying a T-shirt is one way. This year we are the 3 charities, and the committee usually changes those each year, but as St. Jude's, we usually try to spend some money towards something that is specifically research for children. The Rainbow Connection is a more local one, and they've directly impacted some of our Romeo families. They take them on some really neat excursions and really pamper those kids. And then the Casey Hines Shoe Foundation is another local family. And one of the things I didn't know until meeting the Hines family is their daughter passed away, I believe, at the age of 21 from cancer. And, there's a decent amount of, there's St. Jude's and different things that help support children. There's not a lot of organizations out there that specifically target 20-some, kids that are 19 into their 20s. There's some that support families, but those single individuals who are no longer, they're adults now, and they might not even be under the same, there's not as much out there. So the Casey Hines Shoe Foundation specifically targets kids in that age range. And, I've had the privilege of listening to some of their camp recipients from the money that we've donated, that They run some really, really nice retreats for those kids that they provide counseling, friendships, and just that experience. I think for those kids that are going through it at that age, just to know they're not alone, that there's other people out there that are in the same situation, and there are resources there for them. And like I said, they're another local family that, we've seen the direct impact that money has made in helping their cause. And actually, ironically, the game is not the end of the week or end of the events this week. On Saturday, the Casey Hines Shoe Foundation does a glow run down at Jimmy John's Field. And so our football players are going down there to cheer all the runners on, kind of to end the week of our Watchdogs. So action-packed week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then it also spills into the following week. I think our soccer team and swim team and volleyball program, some of those other smaller programs have their own version of the Watchdog Game, which all contribute to the same cause. So, stay tuned for those events. But Coach, thanks for coming out today. Appreciate it. We hope everyone comes out Friday, September 13th at 7 o'clock at Barnabo Field. If you don't have a Watchdog shirt, you can stop by FAMS or at the high school. Their limited supplies last, so we hope everyone comes out.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today and giving our listeners some insight into the Watchdog Game and what to expect on Friday. Anyone who's interested in donating, please send a check to the Romeo Athletics Department. Write the check to Romeo High School with Watchdog in the memo. And at the Homecoming Pep Assembly, there will be a presentation of ceremonial checks to each of the organizations that Coach Rienas mentioned. Next up, we have our first mental health roundtable for the year. And if you missed our first episode that kicked off the season, be sure to go back and listen to episode 32 that gives a sneak peek into what to expect from Romeo High School Student Council. Thank you for joining us, and tune in next week to keep up with Romeo Community Schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com.